Hey everybody, welcome to Slurb. I am Steve, your host for Cash Game Cornerstones for MLB on May 19th. It is a Thursday. I think we got about 9 games, pretty decent slate. Johnny Cueto was not kind to me yesterday. I did not like him getting that complete game and only 1 run and blah, 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 blah. So let's talk about pitchers today. I'm actually going to start with the pitcher for San Francisco today. Jeff Samardzija. He had a great outing in Arizona last time. I watched the game. He looked fantastic. He's a guy who typically goes deep into games. Eight innings is not uncommon for him, which makes him a good cash play. He's not the highest strikeout guy, but not a low strikeout guy either. I think there's definitely merit to him, especially on FanDuel, where he's only 9.9. He's 11.8 on DK. It's kind of a little bit rich for my blood for Samardzija, but then pretty much all of the good pitching options are really expensive on DK today. So that's going to be interesting to see how roster construction comes together. I haven't really put mine together yet, so I'm not sure. And he's facing the Padres, which is a great matchup for a pitcher. They just haven't been very good offensively, though I do think they're kind of getting it together a little bit. Man, it's tough at pitcher today on DraftKings. Strasburg gets the Mets, and it's not the best matchup there either. You know, the Mets have been a really hot team, been hitting the ball really, really well. They hit righties really well, but Strasburg is a great pitcher. Again, these prices, 12.9 on DK. I think he's actually one of the more reasonable ones on DK. Like, I like that price better than some of his other counterparts. And 10.6 on FanDuel. It's reasonable there. It's reasonable there too. I'd probably on FanDuel go with Samardzija, but I could see either argument there. Strasburg definitely a bit higher upside guy, definitely a higher strikeout guy. And then of course the ace, well, not that these guys aren't aces, but the most expensive ace on the slate, Chris Sale. Goes up against Houston, who have had, they had a pretty nice outing last night. They had 5 runs or so, 5-6 runs. They haven't been bad at all, and Sale is really, really expensive. 13.8 on DK, 12.1 on FanDuel. I mean, he's got to be one of the higher overall upside guys on the night, especially because Houston, while they do hit the ball, they also strike out a good bit, and Sale is a very high strikeout pitcher. That being said, I don't know about that price. I'm going to have to see, how that works out. But given the risk added in there, I don't really see the great advantage to going Sale over Samardzija or Strasburg. And then on DK, I definitely like the idea of pairing whichever one of these top guys you go with, especially if you go with one of the more expensive ones, with Michael Wacha. I'm not a real fan of his. He doesn't strike out a lot of guys, although he had an outing or two in there recently where he got way more than he typically gets. That being said, he's only 7.2 on DK against the Rockies away from Coors, who are still a scary hitting team. They still have some definite power guys, some definite, really good hitters, but not quite the same, oh my God, must avoid kind of matchup. And at 7.2, he's 8.1 on FanDuel. There's no need to consider him there, only needing 1 pitcher. But at 7.2 on DK, where we need 2 pitchers, with these other guys all so expensive, I think there's definitely merit there. I'm going to toss this last guy out with a large caveat that I really like him as a player, and there could be some bias going on here that I don't know how safe he is. John Gray against the Cardinals. He's just a really good pitcher. I mean, people have it in their heads that all the Rockies pitchers are terrible, but Coors Field has a lot to do with that. And even at Coors, John Gray has not been bad at all this season, and he's been excellent away from Coors. 8.5 on DK. I don't hate pairing him as a second pitcher as well. There's risk there. I want to make that very clear. There's a good deal of risk there. On FanDuel at only 6.9, man, I love him. If you're not looking at him in cash, definitely look at him in tournaments. it is a bit rough in cash. I'm not going to lie, but I might be leading that way and stacking up on bats. I got to see how it all breaks down salary-wise. But at 6,900, I really don't hate that option for a guy with a ton of upside and probably not like this great downside that he would have pitching at Coors. Catcher is usually a nice place to save some money, and today's no different with that, especially on FanDuel. Yan Gomez gets Adelman. Again, in Cincinnati, which is kind of home run central. We saw Jay Bruce take 2 out yesterday. Who played Jay Bruce? I mentioned him. We saw Rahai Davis take 2 out of there yesterday. It's definitely got some launching potential. 3.8 on DK, only 2.7 on FanDuel. Love him on FanDuel. You're definitely paying up on DK. Also on DK, if you're not going Michael Wacha, I like Tony Walters as a punt catcher. 2.5 there. He's also 2.5 on FanDuel. So nothing wrong with him there. Just not quite as attractive a price. And on FanDuel, I might go for a guy that's typically more consistent in Stephen Vogt. Ivan Nova has not been particularly good either. Vogt is 3.1 on DK, which kind of puts him in a mid-range price. But on FanDuel is only 2.3. So he's kind of the bargain catcher of choice there, in my opinion. First base, I'm going to start with a couple of Toronto options going against Irvin Santana. Edwin Encarnacion is underpriced on FanDuel, in my opinion. He's only 3.8 there. He's 4.5 on DK. I still don't hate him. The Blue Jays have a really nice total in this game. I want to say it's like 4.7. But on DK, I also really like Justin Smoke, who's 3.3 there and has been doing pretty well. If he's 4th, 5th, even 6th in the order, I definitely have interest in him. 2.9 on FanDuel, so not ridiculous, but I don't think that would be where I'm going. If I do want to bargain first baseman on FanDuel, I really like CJ Cron. He's been having a really nice few games lately. Had a nice one last night. He goes against Stripling, who has just been bad, just straight up bad. 3.5 on DK, meh, not interested, give me Smoke. 2.7 on FanDuel, definitely more interesting of a price. Smoke's not bad there either. And then kind of the top expensive option in my mind is Jose Abreu. Going against McHugh, which, can be a little bit of an interesting thing anytime you're going against a knuckleballer. 4.2 on DK, 4.0 on FanDuel. Equivalent. I like the DK price better. But, on FanDuel, I'd probably go for Encarnacion for 200 cheaper. But on DK, Abreu is probably my top option. Second base isn't a terrible spot to pay up today. There's some top options that I really like Kipnis, back in that Cincinnati ballpark. He's 4.9 on DK, so you're really paying up there. I mean, that's going to be rough if you're getting one of the top pitchers in there. It's only 3.6 on FanDuel, much better price there. Joe Panic can save you a little bit of money going against James Shields, who is a good pitcher and has a good record against San Francisco. Well, I mean, he's kind of a good pitcher, but he gives up a whole lot of home runs. That's one of his weaknesses. Panic's only 3.6 on DK, 3.2 on FanDuel. Definitely can save you some money over Kipnis. Phillips, I'm going back to Phillips and that same game too. He's only 2.8 on FanDuel still. I don't really like him at 3.8 on DK. Man, he really left me out to dry last night, but hey, it's baseball. Excuse me, that happens. On DK, if you want to punt the position, and I definitely don't hate that, is a guy who did wonderful things for me last night, Jimmy Paredes. He made his return to the lineup in impressive fashion with a home run in his first at bat. Didn't do much else the rest of the game, but that was plenty. He's only 3K on DK. He's not a second baseman on FanDuel, so that doesn't work. But definitely, I like that given the high price pitchers for today. A 3.0 second baseman with home run upside. I like it. Speaking of Paredes, on FanDuel, he is a third baseman, and I don't mind him there either. He's a real bargain on FanDuel, 2.2. I mean, you're absolutely punting the position, but I don't think there's any better way to punt it, or really probably any better overall punts on the day, assuming Paredes is in the lineup. But if you do want to pay up at third base, despite my talking up of John Gray, Matt Carpenter has a good matchup against him. He's 4.3 on DK, 3.8 on FanDuel, roughly equivalent. He's a good, solid player. Matt Duffy also against James Shields, kind of in the same vein as Joe Panik, although Panik has an advantage being a lefty. But I don't hate Duffy, especially because it's only 3.4 on DK, 2.7 on FanDuel. But if I were going to punt on FanDuel, I'd probably go Paredes over Duffy. And then you can't ignore Kang right now. I called him as most likely to hit a home run last night, and he absolutely came through. Pittsburgh goes up against Fulte, who is definitely a guy we can pick on. Kang's only 3.6 on DK, great price there. 3.3 on FanDuel, pretty decent price. And I don't know if he's going to hit a home run again today, but I think he's definitely got a chance to get on base and have a solid game against Fulte. Going to start off picking on James Shields again. Shortstop, you probably know that I like Brandon Crawford. He's one of the few shortstops that hits with a whole lot of power. And he's usually pretty cheap, too. He's 3.6 today. He's a little expensive on DK, 3.3 on FanDuel. Kind of right there, but not a bad price for the upside that he brings. As I mentioned, Shields is a bit prone to giving up home runs, and Crawford hits the ball really hard. Good combination. It's hard to go wrong with Corey Seager lately. He goes up against Chassin, who has pretty much been bad. I really want to like him, honestly, but he hasn't been very good so far this season. Seager's on the expensive side. It's definitely a pay-up situation if you're getting him. 4.5 on DK, 4.2 on FanDuel. I don't know that you can fit that in. I would probably, with the good pitchers today anyway, depends how you choose to go at pitcher. I would probably instead go with a guy like Zach Cozart, who had a very nice game yesterday, also a guy that I picked. Tomlin's a bit tougher of a matchup, but not that much tougher. He's only 3.2 on DK, 3.5 on FanDuel. I'm not really so interested. And then, kind of a risky play, but it's too cheap not to mention. If not in cash, think about this guy for tournaments. Carlos Correa is only 3.5. Yeah, he goes up against Chris Sale, but he's almost guaranteed to get at least 1 or 2 at-bats against someone else. Sale, while still very good against righties, is comparatively much worse against righties than he is against lefties, although it might not be accurate because he hasn't faced that many lefties, probably for that reason, though. So, man, there's risk, but God, that 3.5, I mean, it's a good possibility it's a trap, but it wants to trap me. You probably gathered that I'm a fan of targeting the Cleveland-Cincinnati game today, and that doesn't change in the outfield. Rahai Davis hit 2 home runs yesterday, kind of out of nowhere. I don't know if this is just following up on it, but I don't think it's a bad spot for him anyway against Adelman. 3.4 on DK, 2.9 on FanDuel. Decent pricing on both sites. If he's still leading off, then I really like him. Leadoff hitters are just great, especially at those prices. Miguel Sano is heating up. I've highlighted him a couple times. It's unfortunate he's no longer third base eligible on DK at all, only outfield on both. 4.1 on DK, 3.9 on FanDuel. Definitely prefer that DK price. Going up against Marco Estrada, who is a fly ball pitcher. Sano has been hitting it really hard. He tends to hit home runs kind of in bunches, and he's been doing that so far. Going against a fly ball pitcher, I think, offers him another good opportunity to do that. I like him if I can get him in my lineups at the price. Speaking of pricey options, Jose Bautista, assuming he doesn't decide to accept his suspension, which I doubt he will, goes up against Santana as well. 4.6 on DK, 4.5 on FanDuel. Like the price way better on DK, but still, that's going to be hard to get in at 4.6 if you're paying up for like Chris Sale or even Strasburg. So I don't know how much use that's going to be. But if you have money to spend, I think that's a great way to do it. On the Cincinnati side of that other game, I mentioned them both yesterday. Adam Duvall didn't get in the lineup. Jay Bruce did, hit 2 homers. I like them both again today. I actually like Duvall better today if he gets the start. He's got better splits against righties. He's 3.8 on DK, 3.7 on FanDuel. FanDuel price is kind of rough. Bruce is only 3.6 on FanDuel. I'd probably still go there first on FanDuel. On DK, I want to say Bruce is like 4.0 or 4.1, so I like Duvall better there. Pittsburgh is kind of being given away on FanDuel, especially the outfielders. Starling Marte, yeah, I know he's been out a couple games. He's been out a couple games because of the paternity list. Like, it's not like he's been injured or something. He's only 4.0 on FanDuel. That's bonkers. I want him in my lineup. It's 4.9 on DK. Far less interested in him at that price. Not that I think he'll do badly against Fulte, but you know, the 4.0 price is just calling to me. A similar story for Polanco. He is 5.2 on DK and 3.9 on FanDuel. FanDuel, great price. DK, nished. And also, I didn't even write him down. Matt Joyce's price is starting to come up, so I'm considerably less interested in general. But if you want to get a piece of that Pittsburgh outfield on DK, he's really the only reasonably priced way to do it. There's going to be updates on stuff throughout the day, including weather and lineups and blah, blah, blah. So come on by, slurv.com. We're hanging out in the tailgate there. It's a nice little chat that we all have going on throughout the day as we put together our lineups. And later on today, I will have a daily Dong Finder video out for you, giving my best picks for home runs based on the Dong Finder model that I've created. And I hope these picks have been useful to you. Once again, this is Slurv. I am Steve Repsold. This has been Cash Game Cornerstones for MLB 519. Good luck, guys.